All right. So I wanted to, in essence, capture the whole process of me doing the FSG filter for version 1.14 of Minecraft, which, maybe you're here to say, learn a little bit about just coding something for real people in real time. I think that I'm personally a little bit just tired of everything being so well produced everywhere that you look. It makes sense. It's good for the individuals. If I were trying to build a stream that I wanted to live off of it or something, I'd need to make it for a mass market and make it really pretty and things like that. But I'm not. I'm just fine. I'm effectively retired, right? So let's see, goals.md. Oh, come on, plugin crashed. I want to show you the real thing, right? I want to show you what it actually feels like to do a thing in real time with no amount of editing or filtering or any of that stuff like that, even though, ironically, we're building seed filters. I think that, if you're getting into something new and technical, everybody ends up with this weird sort of anxiety of everything that they've ever seen produced on YouTube or out there in the world looks so much better than what it is you've ever produced yourself. So, one, the goals of this kind of series is make a real thing in real time. So I don't actually want to record anything off screen, nothing off screen. Be authentic and show the warts. So that you know what it really feels like to make something, tangible, without the illusion and glamour of easy to digest videos. All right, so those are some of those goals, but here's the actual tech goals. Where we last left off, I had sort of 6 goals laid out: a fortress close to 0, a temple near 0, a lava pool near 0, a village near 0, a close stronghold. The closest stronghold is ocean. If the village is not savanna, the dark oak forest, biome near 0, etc. I will also say that I made that video 2 weeks ago or something. Haven't had the time to make any progress on it since. I'm a busy guy, companies and a professorship and kids and all sorts of stuff to juggle. So there's I don't know, there's another aspect to this that maybe I can't capture on screen, which is as you start to build up your ability to produce useful things for the world, there's more and more expected of you, and there's more and more stuff that you need to do every day, and that's good. That's part of life, right? You want to be able to carry a heavier load. The act of passive income or anything else like that, it's a bit of an illusion. Really, we're in the process of just being able to manage more and more, and sometimes you need to cut back. So I'm recording this real quick, and then I'm taking off on a vacation for 4 days because I need it. Go down to the beach with the kids. All right, so here we go. This is where we last left off. In fact, this is publicly accessible. Repl.it, filtered seed. It's maybe one of the, it's one of my more popular repls. So you can fork this and run the code that we made last time and so on, and things like that. So what I might also do is leave that, let's move or copy this thing at its current state to kind of the video1.c. So if you want to come back and see exactly where it was at video 1, there it is. Next up, I kind of, have this funky little compile flag set for this thing. So I might make a version just for this 144 business. So I'll just steal those flags and then call this, what do I want to call it? Oh, V144? No, I'll call it FSG. Okay. So now I'm just going to have that there so I can kind of copy and paste it and run it like this. Paste it down there. Oh, Control-Shift-V. And then I now have an executable that says hooray and has some coordinates. One thing that did happen, I tried not to do anything with this that I didn't share with folks here. But somebody, UDC like comments or DMs and stuff like that. Somebody noted that I could accurately match the chunk base coordinates if I add 11. And that is because, by the way, I can hit the up arrow down here. Pretty cool. By adding 11, that actually takes you to the exact spawn point at this like crossing bridge point that is the beginning of all fortresses in the way Minecraft generates its fortresses. So adding 11 to both will make it match what we see in chunk base, I believe. Okay. So maybe one other comment that came up in between video 1 and video 2 was folks might benefit from seeing me dive into like actual Minecraft Java code, things like that. My kids just got home, but you know what? That's part of it too, right? So one of the things when you're coding, you have to load all these local variables into your head and keep track of what's going on in the world, and distractions just destroy that every time. And as a grown-up with lots of responsibilities, it's hard to find an hour that you can just dive into something and be fully there. So you'll hear the sound of kids in the background, and that's the real context too. So okay, so some folks want to see actually how the Minecraft seeds are generated and things like that, and go a little bit deeper. So so now one of the things, let's take a look at like where we are and where we want to be. This takes in a seed. It is currently setting, it's checking a quadrant, -1, -1. These are regions, region X, region Z, and it is predicting the coordinates of that fortress in that region. Okay, well, that's not exactly the same thing as what the name of the function wants it to be, right? Fortress check says, in essence, what it really wants to do is return a 0 if there's nothing good. So, in this case, we must return 0 because I want to be able to say this is a filter. Given a seed, does it have a fortress that's close, or does it not have a fortress that's close? And in the other case, return 1. All right, so I'd like to kind of have a true false come out of this thing that says, yes, you've got a good filter, and then just run it through a bunch of different seeds until we find a winner. The other part of this is that I have an existential question about the nature of filtering a seed in Minecraft, and this is, again, more about understanding your code, your client base. And for me, that means spending a lot of time kind of in Twitch chats of people who run things, and I've watched tons of people run 1.16 FSG in order to see what they like, what they complain about, where I get the most sort of F-bombs per minute, and how to kind of tweak it to make it as enjoyable as possible and keep a competitive edge and things like that. That's the sort of high empathy that's a big part of coding. So one of the things that's tricky is that I just haven't seen that many people run 1.14. There's not as many big name streamers doing it. It's an old version. And so to make an FSG for version 1.14, I don't have as much feedback, right? So for instance, one of the things I'm immediately thinking is, should I test all 4 quadrants? And I showed you last time an image of the 4 quadrants where the things can spawn, and maybe some of them are there, some of them are not. I have a feeling that any fortress close in any direction is fine, especially if you can see it from spawn. But that does mean that we, need to kind of adapt and then do some sort of check for the closest of the four, which means that now all of a sudden we kind of need to, for each of the four regions, test the closest distance, things like that, and so on. So here's what I'll do for that. I think what I'll do is have closest distance equals, and if I'm going to have something like this, and I'm going to start it at just some big old honking value that, should just be large enough to not matter. Let me be careful with that. That's 4 bytes. This is an int. That'll overflow or something. So this is just some large value. This, by the way, is just, hex. I think we talked about that last time, so that's fine. Closest distance. I just want it to be something larger, and then I'm going to make a loop, and it'll check a distance somehow. And if the distance is less than this closest distance, then we'll be done with it. Now, if I'm working with an int or a float or something like that, then maybe I'm tempted to have like square roots or something. So I might actually be tempted to make something that's sort of like a distance squared function. It takes in like x1, z1, x2, z2, and why am I doing this? I've got a math background. So when you think about the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared is c squared, then you realize that, the distance from point A to point B is the length along the hypotenuse of the triangle between them, etc. If I want that to be an integer all the way, then I need to kind of leave it squared. So this is sort of a squared plus b squared all right. Could I do that more efficiently? Probably. This is kind of the L2 norm if you're into that kind of thing. So this will be a squared distance, and that's fine. I just kind of have to be careful that I'm kind of doing squared distances. And I decided I'd make that a utility because I'll probably use it in all sorts of functions when I need to know some sort of distance or something like that. Keep my math light. Okay. So the next thing is that I probably want to make some sort of a for loop that's going to go through stuff, and I can, maybe I'll just declare some of these variables up front. Does exist chunk x, chunk z. Take all this down, and then what I need to do is I'd like this to kind of loop through the 4 regions. So I'll say like reg x equals -1, or well, I'll just call it region x and region z, and maybe make a for loop. Region x equals -1, region x less than or equal to 0, region x plus plus. So, for loops are pretty foundational and everything. I could maybe talk about them. Won't disturb any, experienced folks. It runs this line of code first to initialize a loop. At the end of the loop, it checks this condition to see whether or not to continue going. And at the end of the loop, it runs this bit of code, which will increment this counter. So this will let x and z be at -1, then z will go to 0, then it will go back to x is 0 and z is -1, and then finally 0, 0. So this will do all the pairs -1, -1, -1, 0, 0, -1, 0, 0. And so if I can make it work kind of generically like that, ooh, I typoed dummy seed. Just caught that. That's good. Then I kind of want all of this in here. My indentation's all wrong now, but boom, tab, beautiful. Now reg x, reg z. And this thing does exist, does exist, does exist, does exist. So I think what we want is, so we could do this a couple of different ways. We could, I could not worry about closest distance, and I could instead have kind of a cutoff distance. So, you know, some options here. I could take in like a cutoff distance, and if I find any that close, then return 1. Actually, that sounds just fine to me. So I'll just take away the word options. All right, so maybe I don't need closest distance. What I want is just long cutoff. And so gone is my precious local variable. And so all I'm going to do is just say, if I exist, then I've got, all right, so this is a tricky thing too. Let's say I need kind of long fx_fz. This will be the fortress x, the fortress z. So I want to say fx equals, and that'll be kind of this value. Oops. Control X, Control V. Fz equals, you know what, I just have to change one letter here to be that. The only tricky bit is that -256. So, but here's a all too clever thing. What I could do is call it 256 times the reg x and times the reg z. So since I've got my region is either negative or 0, then either I kind of have like a negative value or a positive value, and so that should get the right fx and fz. And then I can just say like, well, now I think I could just say if, what do I call it? Distance squared, and I've got a point and another point. So we kind of want the distance squared from 0, 0. Distance squared of fx, fz, 0, 0. I might have to add a little L here to type it as long. Sometimes C is kind of funny about that kind of stuff. If this is less than or equal to the cutoff, then we return 1. And now, so this, in order to get here, the does exist has to come in as 0, which probably is like a bad name for that variable, right? Like this probably does exist as this equal to 0 here or something like that. But so be it. Well, no, now it's done. So does exist will be a Boolean that this thing equals 0. If it does exist and the distance is short, then we return 1. Otherwise, we're going to make it through the whole for loop, get all the way to the bottom, and return 0. Okay. Will this work? Well, maybe. We now have distance squared. I might have made typos in that, so the function itself, when it gets called, when fortress check gets called down here, which is right now just on that. So let's go ahead and put in like a cutoff of, oh, I don't know, 100 blocks. And since it needs to be squared, we'll say if there's a fortress within 100 blocks of 0, 0, then we say yes, otherwise we say no. And now let's turn it kind of into also if this equals 1, oof, type better, printf got a close fortress. Okay. Otherwise, we'll say no close fortress. All right. So we have an actual seed in there. I think I was checking this on chunk base, so let's like copy that, fire up a chunk base. Take a look. Oh, we're in Java 1.14. The Nether. Okay, and we have this one is not very close. This one's not very close. So this should say no, nothing close. Yeah, if I zoom in closer to 0, 0, there's my 0, 0 point. So maybe, what distance is that? So there's a weird thing about Minecraft actually is that when I think about the distance from here to here, I think in practice it feels more like the maximum rather than the true length of the hypotenuse, where this is 85 and that's 149, because I think you can run just as fast along a diagonal as you can X and Z. Maybe I'm wrong about that, like but that's sort of that's maybe an open question about the Euclidean it's not open, somebody knows, I don't know. I have a feeling that running straight along the diagonal is the exact same, blocks per second as blocks per second in a straight line going towards X. And if that's the case, then probably a more correct distance is not the normal L2 Euclidean norm or whatever, but it would be 149 is the actual distance here. However, the reality is that this will be treated as maybe 175. So if I bump this up to 200, I should be able to get a yes, and if it's beneath 200, I should get a no. Let's see if that's the case. If we're running this thing right. So 1, it compiled. Hooray! No close fortress. Good. Now let's jump this up to 200. Compile. Got a close fortress. Excellent. So I feel pretty good about that. Maybe let's get like another random seed in here. Where, all right, so this one only has one close guy. Like, look how far away that is, 331. So this is the only one that'll be close to 200. And if I go down to 100, it's definitely not there. If I go up to 160 or so, it should be there. So let's try it out with a different seed. And this is just kind of testing that it's finding the different quadrants correctly. All right, so 200 should say yes. Yep. And if I go down to 100, it should say no. Yep, good. Okay, so I feel good about that filter now. I think we can finally check that off the goals list. Check. Now, some gotchas. People might prefer to know the quadrant ahead of time. Okay, so it might be that I just want to change that to only check the positive direction. And if I need to do that, that will be as easy as just starting this at 0. 0, 0, 0, 0, then it will only check for a close one in the positive direction. So only 4 bytes, like 4 characters actually change in order to make that quadrant specific. So that's pretty good. Okay, I don't like how that flows over, so I'm just gonna put that like that. Cut off distance, and if I find any of that close, I return 1. Okay. And I'll note that that's squared. Okay, next goal. A temple near 0, 0. Oh boy. Okay, what do we do with that? Well, let's jump in. Let's look at this random seed I've just grabbed. Have an overworld. No, let's fish again until we get a temple. Okay. Is temple turned on? I know they've got, it looks like this, I think. Desert temples, okay. Desert temple. Like I say, all the warts, nothing edited here. You know, YouTube analytics will say, hey, look, this is the moment where a whole bunch of people logged off. Yep, that's fine. So that's not very close. Let's keep going. So this opens up a question, like, you know, if I can spawn next to it, but the spawn is not close to 0, that's another important thing. And that's one of those subtleties inside of doing something with FSG, is that what matters more is that you spawned close to something important, not whether or not you spawned anywhere near 0, 0. However, spawning near 0, 0 lets you have more control over, like, the math of how these things work. Boy, these are more rare than I thought. That's why people want to filter, huh? Go through hundreds in order to find one. Okay. That was close. I probably missed one. People watching will be like, oh, you missed one. And this is definitely something where, fair enough, editing, be like, oh, I'm just going to skip over all this part, or play it at 2x speed so that you don't have to watch me do the thing. That's fair. That's fair. But kind of like the Fight Club scene or whatever. Yeah, just wanted to see it destroy something beautiful. I wanted to make something that's the opposite of pretty. One of my students came in and like added a thumbnail to the previous video on this, like, you know, pretty looking thumbnail. And I'm like, you know, I don't want it pretty. We get enough pretty. All right, this is the closest I've seen so far, right? So it's a little bit. It's a little bit okay. That one is probably all right. I guess there's a question of how close is close enough. Okay. Bordering on absurdity. Now this one I actually like. Let's see. So that's 200 away from 0, 0. So something like this, one of the cool things about seeds is that you can find sister seeds. So I can probably, since this one's kind of close to the middle, if I set my boundary at -200, I can probably find it. So what I might do is find some what we call sister seeds. So if I just go to Python, and we'll say base equals this. Is that the right one? -722. Yep. Then I just kind of want to say, like, adjust equals 1 upshifted by think. So the top 16 bits of the seed are what matters. So if I shift it up by 48, like that's 2 to the 48, then I can say base plus adjust. And this will now be a sister seed that should have a lot of the same traits. All the structures should be in the same place. The desert temple should be in that exact same place. But the spawn will get shoveled. Oh, right. Except for there's not a... yeah, so my spawn got a lot closer, but the desert's not there now. Right. Okay, so this system will need some love. I don't even see... Oh, right. They literally are the same. I should probably do this with like a random number generator or something. So... That's so close to being desert, isn't it? Spawn point. What biome is that? Okay. Do I continue down this silly road? Maybe. Let's give it one more try. How lucky do I feel? I know that I have to get extremely lucky to get this to work out just right. And I should do it programmatically or something. Which means that I can't even click the button again. Alright. I might legit actually edit this despite me saying I really don't want to. But I'm about to take off on vacation. It's a lot less time to just upload something than to edit it. You know what? Maybe another thing I could do is I could just take that one that had anything that has a desert village and check it for that. The other thing I could do is... oh, that was a good one I just passed by. Can I hit the back arrow? Nope. That's not how this works, huh? Neil, who I love, and I said I loved last time, made Mind Map. And Mind Map has a structure seed mode where you can see all of the potential structures. So maybe one of the things that's interesting about that sister seed, so maybe what might come out of me not editing that is that what is a sister seed? And you might be thinking, you know, when you're playing in the Minecraft world, there are a lot of potential structures that get canceled by the biome. So, in fact, I think I will pull this up in... this is actually a really important point. So, you know what? It's worth it. I'm now glad. I don't think my OBS is going to be capturing this other window, so I'm going to try to add that in real time. So I have a program called Mind Map, and I'm going to pull it up, that that my boy Neil made. Let's add a display capture. So I'm in OBS. I think it's a window capture is what I want. Okay, window capture, mind map. Excellent. So here's mind map. I'm going to blow it way up. And if I go to mind map, I can say new from seed, paste this in, change this down to 1.14. I think people run 4.4, whatever. I'm not sure. Hit continue. This is, you know, this wacky seed. Check my OBS. It looks fine. But up here, I can turn on structure seed mode. Now take a look at this wacky seed in structure seed mode. There is a potential desert pyramid at -279.57. There is a potential igloo at 989. There's a potential shipwreck at 5749. A potential buried treasure here. A potential monument over here. So the idea that the lesson for folks learning about kind of Minecraft speed finding is that there's a lot more potential objects than there are real objects. So if I turn off structure seed mode, most of that stuff disappears. And when I flick it back on, you see all sorts of things that could be. And in essence, you could shuffle the biomes until this desert temple shows up. So what I was trying to do with the sister seeds is it leaves all of these potential structures in the exact spot they are, and then it will change around the distribution of these biomes. And if this is no longer ocean, then the ship or beach, then the shipwreck will disappear. And if this ends up being ice, then the igloo will appear. And if this ends up being beach, the buried treasure will appear. If this ends up being desert, then the desert pyramid will appear. So to some extent, all filters have two stages. One stage is finding the correct structure seed, where the structures will be in the right place. And then the second stage is finding the right sister seed, or sort of shuffling the biomes until this thing actually lines up correctly. Like here's this village that would be an ocean village, but the biomes just don't line up, and so it's not there at all. So I like Mind Map for demonstrating what the code sees versus what reality sees. And so in building a filter, this is what the code sees. And you know, it makes it even harder when I'm watching somebody and they're like dude, FSG sucks. Like, I expected a portal here, and there's not a portal here, and so on. Where it's like, well, I filtered for it. It's there. Something weird happened in the biomes. Some terrain thing canceled it or whatever, and that's just the reality of it, right? Okay, so I think what I can do is I can just run with whatever the seed is and say there's a desert pyramid at -215, -199. There's a desert pyramid at -279.57. Okay, I'm going to flick this screen off on OBS. It's window capture 5, so I can flick it back on later. All right. So let's just run with whatever this is. There's a desert temple at 370, -376. I don't even... 370, -376? Ah, okay. This doesn't... Oh, there it is. 360, -375 is what mind map says for that. I know you can't see the mind map right now, but... Okay. So, for this temple business, let's get to the place where we can get that temple right. Control V, do this thing. The other part of FSG would be cycling through random seeds until we pass all of these structure checks, and then later passing the biome checks. There is no such thing as Nether Biomes in 1.14, right? All the biomes are just nether waste and lava and stuff like that or whatever. So the nethers are entirely determined by the sister seed, or by the structure seed. By the way, also you can look at sort of seed mod 2 to the 48, and that is the structure seed. So anything that is the same as the seed mod 1 to the 48 or 2 to the 48 is identical structure seed wise. Okay. So we're going to introduce something. Let's just say, and all I want to do is just return desert temple of seed. All right. So we'll just start again. Desert temple doesn't yet exist. We'll say end. You know what? I always have to check this. Yes, desert is 1S. Okay, so it's not a desert temple. Whew. All right. Again, keeping it real. My goal is authentic. What's a day in life really like? Let's go. Okay. And I'll just return 1. Okay, so it does nothing so far. But, I also like to just kind of compile early, compile off, and Control D will get me out of the Python session there. Up arrow, up arrow. Yep, good. Return 1, compiled, ran, didn't say anything. That's fine. Okie dokie. Now, for actually finding a thing, I'm going to consult my old filtered seed code, which has all sorts of stuff. So the one I want, I think, is from the Q Biomes library, which is finders.h. So let's throw that in there. Oh, it's already in there. Cool. Good. And let's look at an example of me finding a location using this Q Biomes library. Okay. Another little philosophy moment. If I, pull up Q Biomes and look at this thing, beautiful little library. One of many different possible libraries I could have gone with, I think. But they have, example code here for kind of C filtering. Hey, great. This is where I started. You want to find something. Here's some biome structure generation. Hey, this looks good. Is viable structure. So struct type equals outpost. I will say they made a breaking change since I started to use this. So at this point, my code is now old compared to what they have here. That happens all the time in the code world. If you use somebody else's library, then you kind of depend on them. And I'd like to keep the dependencies as low as possible. And I have now a tough choice. Do I upgrade my thinking to use the latest version of QBiomes? Change all of this sort of stuff around in order to have the latest and greatest? What sort of benefits do I get out of that? Or do I stick with what I can kind of copy and paste and do quick? I think I'm going to stay with quick right this second and accumulate some technical debt. And that's how the long, slippery slope into disaster works. So be it. So be it. So here's a village location filter. And I'm just going to steal it. Actually, maybe I won't steal it quite so wholesale. I'll steal this part. Okay, so let's take a look at what I have here, how to adapt it to a desert temple in Minecraft version 1.14. So village config, what is this stuff? I don't see it here because this changed in the versions, and that's what made me think about the versions, but I know what I have from the previous versions. I think I can even roll back the GitHub repo to show me old versions, but in essence, they have these wacky little structs that hold in them. I don't know what the right phrase is, but they hold the parameters of, you know, this sort of weird salt and a region and another thing, and so I want to look for the one for a desert pyramid, and here we go. So this is the config object that I need here. So this is whatever that structure config thing is. Get structure pause. Lower 48 is now seed. So this is the region X and Z. You know, maybe let's go ahead and do the same kind of thing that we did with the Nether. Let's just make it like a regex, different type of regex than the one we coders most love. And let's just say for regx equals -1, regx less than or equal to 0, regx plus plus, for regz equals -1, regz less than or equal to 0, regz plus plus. I just want to like grab what I think is the position, the structure seed position for all 4 of those regions. This pause type is introduced by the QBiomes library, the position type. So I can run this thing here, and we'll just put in regx, regz. This valid int business, I'm not sure that it does anything here at this stage, but it'll do something. And basically it gives me some sort of a feedback mechanism, so I could say if not valid, I don't know, well, I want to kind of say if valid, then printf reg x z %d%d. So this will be sort of pause negative. Chords percent. I don't know if it's a long or not. It might complain at me in a second. That's okay. Can handle some complaints. Regz, and we want p.x, p.z. Okay, so if this does its job, right now it's just going to report to me what it thinks the positions should be for a desert pyramid. Notice that I don't have anything that says like 1.16. So I'm just hoping that this is the same. Like this has this MC, and I think that changes this, biome stuff. This seems like maybe it's version independent for the structure seeds. So let's test it. Up, up, up. Okay. So neg, we have neg224, neg208. Let's flick back on the OBS mind map. Kind of mouse around till we find neg. It says -215, -199. Let's jump back, confirm that. -215, -199. Hey, what is that gap? -199, that is +9? And -215, is that also +9? Okay, cool. So it looks like maybe 99 is an important figure for like an offset in this space. It looks like they added 9 to both of my two numbers there. Let's go to the next one. -279 and 57. Let's subtract 9. So that should be like -288 and what's 57 minus 9? 48. So -288, 48 is what my code should do for neg pause. Let's see if that's true. -288, 48. Boom! Yes! Okay, so I think we've got it. We now have some sort of a filter for desert village close by. Potential desert village. Now, you know, we have another can of worms to deal with later. We can safely say that they add 9 to get to some sort of center point or something. Sweet. Okay, so they want a close desert temple. Let's just steal the same junk we just did, huh? Let's have some sort of a cutoff. Long cutoff. No, actually, I can foresee a problem right now with the difference between the Nether and the overworld. Okay, let's talk this out. Here's the thought process. I could check the distance right here. All right, I can do the same business. Long, you know, temple X, temple Z. Get here and say tx equals p.x plus 9, tz equals p.z plus 9. And then I can kind of have a distance. So if I were to do something like if distance squared of tx tz 0 0 you know, less than or equal to cutoff and then return 1. That's what I'm tempted to do right this minute. Then what would happen? Well, that's fine, but I will have to use this code again when it comes time to filter out the sister seeds, because I won't actually know which of the 4 regions it found the close temple in. So if I'm going to filter for a close temple, and so now I've got this like wacky choice, which is, well, maybe I could save that somehow, like save what region had the close temple. And if I save the region that has the close temple, should I save the region? Maybe I could save the chords of the close one. If it ends up that checking the biomes is a lot more expensive, which, you know, spoiler alert, it kind of is, then I might actually want to keep all of the regions that are closest. And if I can shuffle through biomes and get one of the potential desert temples that is close to show up, but not both or something, and, you know, or I just stick with positive so that I can find the biomes close enough in the next one. And what about distance to spawn? You know, that's one of those other things that people tell me all the time, like, hey, you know, it doesn't matter if it's close to 0 0 if I spawn at, you know, Timbuktu. if I spawn at negative 256, negative 256, I'd rather the thing be close to me at spawn rather than close to you. So what do I do with that? Well, do I filter a structure seed first, or do I just filter the whole seed and hope for everything to line up right? Well, that's actually a much slower process because biomes are really expensive to check and things and whatever. And you know, finding a good structure seed is cheap. Then finding biomes that fit it is faster. So, you know, and this leads me to want to make a choice. Like, well, maybe I will fish for the spawn to be at 0, because I can just predict that, and all the spawns center around 0 anyway. And then maybe I reproduce this when I get to biome land and just say, hey, are any of these close and have a good biome? You know, I could just like borrow this exact same code and just add the word biome once I'm doing the whole seed, not just the structure seed part. So, you know, these are tough choices. But you know, let's take some wins if we can get them, and let's adapt this. So I'm gonna make notes of my like considerations for later, maybe just there in my goals page. And honestly, you guys, even on YouTube, can just come and check my exact notes at this exact REPL. Nothing mysterious here. So we'll say printf got a close desert temple, and at this point we might actually want to start, because those desert temples took a little bit to find. I might actually want to start doing some real random number generations, and that's a little bit funky too. How am I going to do my random numbers? And I'm a crypto guy, so I'll show you the wacky crypto stuff I did. But first, let's just see, you know, what does this say? What should it say? It should say no desert temple found. No close temple, no close fortress. I did not put a new line character in there, so just kind of ran them together. Okay, cool. So, you know, that seed sucked. Run this again a couple of times, see if we get, or I could just shift back my radius until we and I should probably, oh, there we go. No. You know, this is a structure seed problem more than a see how far that spawn ended up being from 0, and so this would be, you know, maybe there's a sister seed here that's fine, but actually, so at this point I'm half inclined to go the other way with this, right? Which is, you know what, let's just make our own seeds until I get one that passes both of these, rather than fish around hitting random. You know, I'm starting to get to the place where it's actually kind of expensive to find stuff, and the whole point is to filter for good stuff. So what do I do with that? And then I'll wrap up the video. So for me, generating random numbers, there's a couple of different ways to do it. I've got one method here that will here we go. This will read from my system's urandom. It's actually really slow to do this, so I only tend to do it once, but let's just see if this works. This will read a 64-bit number for me, 8 bytes of truly unpredictable data. So unpredictable it's almost useless, but of course it's not. It's quite useful. All right, so one, let's just see if that compiles at all, or if I need to include some other header or another. Yep, we're good. Okay, so when I run this, it will give me a unsigned 64-bit integer, and I think what I can do is just say, well, let's make, like, you know, an infinite loop or something. Let's say int found seed equals 0, And maybe I want to see like how many seeds did I go through. So in seed count, and actually I think I'll just go ahead and preemptively make that a long. Seed count is 0, and now I'll say while. By the way, I like to first time I make a while loop not just trust it. So while found seed equals 0, and I'll just say and seed count is less than, I don't know, 1,000 or something. I'm going to make this infinite loop, and we will say seed equals, what did my function call? Rand64. Okay. And now we'll just do kind of if this. At this point, I might turn my filters into negative filters. I think continue is the right word here. Oh, I also want to like immediately add to my seed count. And then let's grab the other filter. If fortress check is here, if this is 0, then also continue. Pretty sure continue will just do the next loop. Like break will leave the while loop. Continue will just go to the next one. Or since it's so few, I could just trust nothing and say if this is 1 and this is 1, then found seed equals 1. So then that will break, and then we can just like display the seed down here. And then we can say printf found seed % LD after %LD seeds. Okay, and so now we'll get a kind of a feel for what is the seed we found, and what was my seed count. Okay, so I'm going to stop at 1,000, right? Just in case I've got something stupid. If I get to 1,000, it could just as easily be like developer error. Hey, you found one after 476. So probably I don't have to be as cautious anymore. I hope. And let's go check the seed in chunk base to see how it looks. So this should have, you know what? Forget chunk base. Let's turn on mind map, because I'm not filtering for biomes yet. So chunk base will lie like this is not good enough for real people. But if I go here and load, look at that. So this is at 105, 169. So sure enough, there is a thing within 200 of 0, 0. And if I go to the Nether, there is a fortress within 100 of 0, 0. So that is a filtered seed. If I turn off the structure seed, of course, it will disappear. So I'll need a sister seed to make this into desert there. And maybe it's worth noting which quadrant it came out. If it was pause, right? And I have a feeling that positive is kind of always pretty important to this. And you'll note that it'll feel a lot closer than the 200, right? Because the spawn ended up being right next to it. However, in the sister seed, the spawn could easily move way over here to Timbuktu. And so, we'll have to also filter for the spawn to be close. Well, okay. That's pretty exciting. Let's call that a day for video 2. What did we accomplish? We accomplished the following. So 1, let's just copy v114.c to video2.c. All right, so you can see the progress from session to session. We now have something that produces random numbers, an infinite number of them until it finds something that satisfies a couple of different filters. The filters are parameterizable by distance, a desert temple, and a fortress nearby. In our goals, we now can say check to both of these with a couple of gotchas. Biomes not done, and might be a PETA. That is a pain in. And we will have to check sister seeds for the correct region to be desert. That sounds like it could be painful, and so I might want to allow it. I might want to allow close in multiple regions, so I have more chance of finding a biome fit. Okay. All right, next up is lava pools and villages. So, oh good, failed to connect, retrying, I bet. You know what, if that happens, I'm just gonna go over here and hit Control A, Control C. Just in case. All right, did it do anything weird? It came back. Yeah, we're cool. All right, coding on REPL is not like a great environment. I just do it because it's public and you guys can access it and whatever. Okie dokie. That is part 2 of this series, in which I build something real for real people in real time with no pretense of glory.